This is Dr.RED Panda.
Have you heard of the intriguing ancient Roman book called The Art of Love? Would the love techniques described in it still be effective today? Just how bold are its descriptions? Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Red Panda, and today we're going to unveil the mystery of this fascinating work. The ancient Romans were arguably one of the most uninhibited cultures in history. Can you imagine? They not only bathed together and shared public toilets, but they also had astonishingly open customs within marriage. Husbands shared their wives, and wives shared their husbands. Even emperors sometimes participated, sharing their queens with others. However, in such an open society, there exists a book so audacious that even the Romans considered it over the top, resulting in it being banned. This work is not the salacious reading you might expect. It was penned by the famous poet Ovid during the reign of Augustus and is regarded as a cultural treasure of that era. The Art of Love in Ancient Rome. I am not here to teach love to the wealthy. The wealthy don't need my instruction at all. They don't require wisdom. When they want something, they simply pay for it. For such people, I can only concede. Their methods of charming others are far superior to mine. My poetry is written for the poor, because I have experienced love even in my own poverty. Ovid writes this in the second book of The Art of Love. At first glance, this passage makes it seem like a serious love guide, with the author presenting a very principled worldview. Not only does he criticize those who rely solely on money to satisfy their desires, but he also demonstrates that love can be achieved without wealth. However, as you continue reading, you quickly realize that the tone takes a surprising turn. You must be the first to grab the wine glass that her lips have touched and sip from the side where she is drunk. Take every dish that her fingers have touched, and while doing so, brush against her hand. If these were just ordinary dating tips, they would seem a bit too cheesy. It feels more like a signal to a casual partner. As you read on, the surprises continue. Ovid advises men, if you are a clever man, only pursue women. You can do this guilt-free, as long as it is done with sincerity. Deceive those who deceive you. Most women are unfaithful. Since they have set traps, let them fall into them. He then instructs women, do not let him enter through the door. Make him climb through the window. Do not greet him with a cheerful face. Instead, show him a look of fear. Indeed, this book on how to achieve love is largely about how to engage in inappropriate relationships. Even more shocking are the explicit descriptions of intimate encounters throughout the book. Ovid even shares detailed techniques regarding these matters, making the book highly practical. For example, consider this passage. Believe me, don't be too eager to reach that intoxicating state. You need to go through many delays and arrive at that state unknowingly. When you have found the place where a woman loves to be caressed the most, you must not be shy to caress her. Then you will see a trembling light sparkling in your lover's eyes, like sunlight reflecting off rippling water. Following this will be sweet whispers of complaints, intoxicating moans, and tender words that stir love. But don't overwhelm her. Don't leave your lover behind, nor let her go ahead of you. The destination should be reached together. When both the man and the woman have succumbed, utterly exhausted and lying together, that is true bliss. What do you think? Isn't that quite audacious? Yet, as I read this remarkably explicit text, I'm sure you also feel that, despite its rawness, it is incredibly beautiful. If you haven't yet absorbed enough, let's look at this description of drunken debauchery from the book. At a banquet, what you gain is not just the joy of drinking. In such situations, the cheeks of the god of love often glow rosy, as he firmly grasps the wine jug with his tender hands. Once his wings are soaked with wine, he becomes dazed and remains seated, unable to move. However, it won't be long before he rises, shaking his wings drenched in wine. Those men and women sprinkled with the drops of wine that fell from the love god's wings will suffer the consequences. Wine would immerse the heart in amorous fantasies, making passion easily ignite. Thus, all caution would be cast aside, as revelry had rendered it invisible, and the moment of pleasure arrived. To depict drunken escapades so beautifully and romantically is truly astonishing. The author Ovid. That's right, while The Art of Love has been widely criticized on moral grounds, no one can deny its literary value. After all, it's far from tabloid literature. It is the work of the renowned ancient Roman poet Ovid, who deeply influenced Western aesthetics and literary theory. Ovid, born in 43 BCE and passing away in 17 or 18 CE, is one of the most celebrated poets in the history of Roman literature. His works span various themes, with his most famous piece being the epic Metamorphoses. Following closely behind is this collection of love poetry, The Art of Love. Metamorphoses is one of the most important epics in classical literature, told in poetic form and recounting stories of transformation from ancient Greek and Roman mythology, primarily focusing on humans or gods changing into animals, plants, monsters, and more. For example, Daphne transforms into a laurel tree to preserve her chastity, while Jupiter turns his lover Io into a heifer to prevent Juno from discovering his infidelity. With its exquisite descriptions and rich content, Metamorphoses holds a significant place in literary history and has had a profound impact on later Western literature. As for The Art of Love, it is a collection of poems about romance, divided into 3 books. The first book primarily teaches men how to attract women, covering everything from clothing and grooming to how to communicate and behave, leaving no detail overlooked. The second book teaches men how to maintain love and sustain long-term relationships. The third book is directed at women, and like the content for men, Ovid instructs women on how to seduce men, providing guidance on all aspects from appearance to personality. However, as mentioned earlier, the romantic concepts promoted in this work are quite audacious. Ultimately, it was condemned as a forbidden book, and Ovid himself faced exile, dying far from home. Interestingly, given the open nature of Roman society at the time, some researchers believe that the real issue wasn't the art of love itself, but rather that Emperor Augustus sought to persecute Ovid. They argue that the claim that the art of love promotes immorality was merely a pretext, an unjust accusation without valid grounds. Does The Art of Love have issues? So, does this book have problems? Absolutely. For instance, Ovid suggests that men should interpret a woman's rejection as flirting. You must believe that there is no woman you can't win over. If you are determined, you can surely have her. So go ahead and cast your net. Do you think she doesn't want to yield? You're dead wrong. Deep down, she has likely already acquiesced. A stolen love is just as sweet and tempting to a woman as it is to men. The difference is that men generally do not feign indifference, while women are particularly skilled at disguising their desires. If all men collectively decided to hold back, women would soon be crawling at our feet. Furthermore, Ovid explicitly teaches men how to manipulate their lovers. Every woman believes she deserves to be loved. Even the most unattractive among them flaunts her charms. If you shower your mistress with gifts, you won't gain any advantage. Even if you deceives her, you won't suffer any consequences. Therefore, always carry the appearance of being ready to give her gifts, but never actually give her any. Since ancient societies are so distant from us, we often view history through a romanticized lens. However, it's not hard to see through the above words that Roman men were not so different from modern men. Rome was a completely patriarchal society, and Ovid was a straightforward man, constrained by the limitations of his time and gender. Thus, we cannot hold his worldview to overly high standards. Nevertheless, we can also find some enlightening teachings in the book. For instance, consider this passage. Beauty is something easily diminished. Violets and lilies do not bloom forever, and when roses wither, only thorns remain on their bare stems. You too, beautiful young person, will soon have gray hair and wrinkles. So cultivate your wisdom now, for it is enduring and can serve as the foundation for your beauty. It is the only treasure that will accompany you to the grave. When it comes to ancient works, the correct approach is to extract their essence while discarding the dross. It's clear from The Art of Love that the Romans were quite liberated when it came to sexuality. As someone once said, The Greeks control their sexual desires, while the Romans are controlled by them. In ancient Rome, everyone, from emperors to slaves, was subject to the sway of their sexual appetites. In fact, if we examine ancient societies across various cultures, they all exhibited a certain openness regarding sexuality. With so few forms of entertainment available in the past, human nature is difficult to suppress. Even in societies with the strictest moral codes, the moral standards of the upper class were often quite poor. So, a little less hypocrisy and a bit more openness can make people seem more endearing, don't you think? And that's a wrap for this episode of the video. I'm DR.RED Panda. If any of you have your own perspectives, or if you think there are any errors in the video, feel free to leave a comment in the discussion section. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Until next time, take care.